Hey guys, welcome back to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast YouTube channel. My name is Samaria, and I'm joined by my co-host and best friend, Miosha. And today we're reviewing Married at First Sight, season 16, episode 12. But before we jump into that, can I talk? Before we jump into that, please make sure that you hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Also, comment below. Let us know what your thoughts were about this episode. We're just having a conversation about this being maybe like a boring episode, and a few other episodes were as well. So just let us know what you think about this season overall and this episode. All right, we're going to start with Nicole and Chris again, because there's not much to be said. She took her dad and Chris on a bonding activity. So they went to goat yoga.
Yeah, the whole time I just kept thinking, what if these goats poop and pee on them? Like, are they potty trained? I need more information.
Yeah, it's not something I would ever do because I'm not like an animal person, but I know it's a very common, or it's becoming more common.
Really? I've never heard of this.
Because I guess people, who love animals enjoy having the animals there. Kind of like, when they bring those dogs around who are just like comfort dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like when I was in school, they used to bring dogs like one day out of the semester and just have people pet them. So I think it's sort of that type of thing. Like the goats are there, but I don't know how it works with that, because you can't really control animals like
like especially when he was holding the goat up. I was like, see, you need to keep your mouth closed because you just
But I think the most interesting thing was hearing about the evolution of her relationship with her dad, and how, the divorce really affected her, especially in her teenage years. But there wasn't much that was interesting that happened there. The dad says that he's okay with Chris now, so maybe he won't be taking any more shots. I don't know.
Yeah, and Chris said, okay, well, what changed or what happened? And it seems like he's come to a place of, well, if Nicole likes it, then I like it too.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess that's progress. I don't know.
Yeah. The conversation with Dr. Pepper. So I put it, there wasn't really anything surprising or detailed, in my opinion. I like that she's working through what happened with her exes, but there wasn't anything that stood out to me in that conversation. It felt like a love fest, but you tell me. What did you think?
What was interesting to me is I've felt like Nicole and Chris have been very open with their previous relationships, and this is what has happened. I felt like the both of them have been very vulnerable. So to hear her say that she's struggled with being vulnerable was interesting, just because I felt like I've seen the opposite of that, and that they've both been very open. So I was a little maybe confused, like, what is she referring to? Because I feel like she's been an open book.
Yeah.
And sharing a lot about her previous relationships and being vulnerable. So I didn't really quite get that.
Yeah. And later on, she talked about how her mom had asked her, when she got the bruise from the ex putting out the cigarette on her. She said, this is how her mom's gonna find out. So I was like, that's interesting. I hope that you don't remember that. Yeah, she was like,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully, if she tells her mom, hopefully she pulls a Chris and is like, hey, so I said this on national TV, and I just want you to know that this was what was said. But yeah, I don't have much on these two.
Yeah, Chris brought up his past relationships again. He was prompted this time.
Yes, and he didn't say toxic or throw anybody under the bus the way that he usually does.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's still a love fest, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there isn't much to say other than the previews. It looks like more comes to light. So I think we just have to be patient on these two.
It is dragon, but we're here.
Yeah.
Okay, so Gina, Gina and Clint. I feel like every episode Clint is talking to somebody. So I guess he was talking to his dad this episode. But what I have on them is when they were sitting down with Dr. Pepper, what exactly were they arguing about? Because it felt like
So I think Clint has expressed that he wants more, wants her to open up. And she says that you haven't been asking me questions or prompting me. And I'm not the type of person to just offer. And it seems like he got frustrated because maybe there has been dialogue, but it's been one-sided, and he doesn't feel like it's natural for it to be this like Q&A type vibe. It's like, okay, let's just let it flow. And when it leads there, open up when the opportunity presents. It seems like both of them were digging their heels in on their communication style.
So that's what I said. Maybe it has to do with them being older. So Clint is what, 42? How old is Clint? I don't know.
He's 40.
40. Okay. So he's 40 and she's 35, 36. So I was like, maybe that's just something that comes with, the older you get, the more maybe stuck in your ways you get, depending on who you are. I think for these two people, that's probably true. But
I also think it's because she's not into him.
Yeah.
And so that's also a big barrier of, I'm getting the vibe that I don't want to invest too much of my time or energy. Like, we could be around each other, we can be cool, we can be cordial, have fun
together. Yeah.
But I'm not going to waste my energy going deep with you, knowing good and well that I'm not headed in that direction. Yeah. But I feel like Clint is still very open. I think he's reading the body language. He sees that she's a bit closed off, but he's just all in, I think, and really wanting it to work. And I don't even know that he really wants it to work because of her. Yeah. I think maybe he just wants it to work because he's like, oh, I'm going to give my all on this process.
Because he signed up for it.
Because he signed up for it. So they're not equally yoked in that way.
Yeah. So I remember him saying, oh yeah, that doesn't come natural to me, like to ask questions and this, that, and the other. But it didn't seem like such a huge problem to me. So that's why I was like, I don't know why this is an argument. But probably when you're in it, it seems like a bigger deal. If there were anybody to make a concession, though, it would probably be Clint. Which kind of takes me to the activity. I loved this activity for them. I actually like them together as friends. It's very much like friend vibes. So I like them together as friends, and I loved that activity, especially because Gina said, oh, he wants the depth, but he hasn't done the work asking me questions. I enjoyed them sharing with the questions that the experts provided. So yeah, I want to do that activity.
Yeah, and I'll say, similar to Kirsten, this is the first time I feel like I'm learning more about Gina this episode. And so I kind of understand where Clint is coming from, in that, okay, you signed up for this process, but then you're all closed off.
Yeah.
Either you're going to come in and you're going to be open, because we don't have all day and night for you to get comfortable in a traditional way.
Yeah.
And so I do think that that's something that the experts will work with all the couples on going forward is, okay, I understand that you need to feel comfortable, but because this is unconventional, you need to go in being prepared to be open.
Yeah.
And I feel like Gina said something to the effect of, oh, we just need to have conversations. I just need to feel more comfortable, which makes sense in a traditional dating engagement situation.
Yeah.
Not necessarily for this. And I don't expect them to dig super deep when the cameras are there, but at least when the cameras aren't there, that is my expectation. Because then if you were digging deep when the cameras weren't there, I don't think your spouse would get on camera and be like, oh, I know nothing about them. when y'all had a really good conversation the night before.
Yeah. No, I definitely get it. I love the questions though. Like I said, I want to do like an activity like that. I love, if you guys have tuned into our podcast, we have a whole segment called Girlfriend Check-In, where we ask like a deep question or any type of question and just get conversation going. So that's definitely up my alley.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Airris and Jasmine.
Yeah, we're moving right along. It's not much here. Y'all tell us in the comments if we missed anything we're talking about.
I don't think we missed. I feel like we saw Nicole and Chris several times, but nothing came out of those several times.
And I think also the scene with her dad, while I think it was practical, I think they're also bringing him on just to add more
You think we're seeing him too much?
Yeah, I feel like of all the parents, we've seen him the most.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do think we're seeing him more than her dogs. I didn't want to have to bring it up, but
that's hilarious. Okay, Jasmine and Airris.
Oh, one more thing. Sorry. I'm truly curious if Gina wants kids. I've heard Clint talk a lot about having kids, which we know these two aren't going to work out.
Anyway,
but independent of Clint, I don't think I've ever heard her refer to kids, wanting kids, other than her saying, "Oh, I'd be open with the right person." So I don't know. I wonder, okay, Gina, do you really want kids? And yeah, it does need to be with the right person. I understand. I get all that. But it's just interesting that y'all tell me if she's referred to having a family or having kids, even in a confessional scene. I haven't heard her say it until this episode.
Interesting. Now, I haven't heard her say it either, but unless she said it on the matchmaking special, which I didn't catch. But I figure we just weren't hearing about it because Clint ain't the one for her. Like, I feel like there's a lot that we just won't know about Gina because she doesn't like Clint.
Yeah, and I think Clint brings it up because when he's talking about his future and what he wants, he automatically includes that versus her. It's like, oh, I just want to be successful, have my salon. Which is nothing wrong with that, but it would just be interesting to hear if she actually really wants kids or not.
So, okay.
All right.
Cool. Jasmine and Airris?
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess he got her flowers because at the beginning of the episode, there was some mention about flowers. Can I just say I'm really proud of Jasmine this episode? Like, we'll get into it, but this is where I've wanted her to be, and I'm not mad at it at all. But okay, he got her flowers. There's that. That's the most romantic gesture he's made this entire season. So I can't even really applaud him for that because it's been a whole month. So
yeah, and then he follows it up with, and yeah, women ruined the world because of Eve. Really?
What even, girl? When I tell you, I just like tune him out. Like, what is this man even talking about? Like, anyway. So, okay, they have. I think this is the conversation with Dr. Pepper, and it seemed at some points in that conversation, and Jasmine said this too, but there was this idea that Jasmine has to be the one to initiate, like, oh, I see this going downhill, so I have to be the one to step in and do this. And I wrote down, I do not want that for her. And I understand her getting to the point where she's like, is it even worth telling him about certain things because he's not feeling me like that. He's not really into this. So this was the beginning of me liking where Jasmine went this episode.
Yeah. And up until this point, all we've really heard is just about his lack of attraction to her.
Yeah.
And so if there's no progress on that that point, or him at least trying to dig deeper with her without her prompting, then I don't really know what the expectation of her is.
When Airris gets in front of the experts, or later on we see him with her mom, he really puts on like we haven't been watching him for the last several weeks. I feel like if I were her mom after their conversation, I would think, oh yeah, he is into it, which I think is something that she said. But I think when it's the experts and when it's the mom or anybody else on her side, he has this image of someone who wants this to work. I don't know if you get that vibe.
I get the vibe too, that when his energy is different with Jasmine as well. Other than when they eventually got to the question scene, he seems so checked out and deflated in terms of energy. There's no eye contact. The scene with his mom was the most eye contact I've seen him give anyone so far on this season. So it's not just what he's saying for me, and I picked up on that, but it's the energy too. He just seems so like, I'm here, but I'm not here. So, and to me, she's maintained, I think, good energy. If someone was giving me that
Consistent.
energy off rip, I would be like, oh, I'm checked out, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to be chasing after someone who's not interested.
Okay.
I will say I was not happy, but I'm glad that she voiced the fact that his lack of attraction hurt her feelings.
Mm.
Because as many times as he kept saying it, it's like, do you not think that that's hurtful? Okay, you said it once.
Yeah.
We get it. She gets it. And then you continue to bring it up.
Yeah.
Let it be. If you're not progressing, then let it be. Just don't even say anything at all. So I'm glad that she was able to put that out there. So hopefully that signals to him like, okay, there's no need to say it anymore going forward.
Yeah. Dr. Pepper said something that they went to commercial, and I feel like it was never like fully resolved, but she was like, do you ever think that the lack of chemistry has nothing to do with her? And I was like, what is she trying to say? But then when they came back, I guess, were getting a little bit deeper with Eris, which, okay, I think every single time that they ask Eris to get deep, he goes back to like the friend and his dad. So, and don't get me wrong, I think those things clearly have impacted this man. So I am not trying to say like it's not important or he's using it as a cop out. I think when when I think of someone being vulnerable, yes, that's a part of it, but there's also like like I want to hear about you. And to me, he always goes back to, like, even when they were doing the questions, he always goes back to, oh yeah, losing my dad and losing my friend. And once you've heard that, like, I don't know, can we get some other stuff about you that's deep too, not just that. So that was my thought when he was being vulnerable.
Yeah. And I think even if it's not being done on purpose,
Mhm.
I think it's almost a deflection to not focus on him. Imagine if I come
Yeah.
to you and I'm like, oh, I had this traumatic experience, and it's like you're not even thinking about me. You're thinking about maybe me and my feelings regarding that situation. But I feel like it's a deflection from going deeper about him. So you're kind of thrown off from prying about him or anything else beneath the surface, because you're like, oh, this person's in a fragile state. I don't want to hurt them anymore. So you're refocused on this traumatic experience and really not them as a person.
And even if he went a little bit deeper and talked about the ways that it impacted him, it doesn't have to be done on camera, because
Mm.
I don't think everything is for, especially when it's something that is that traumatic. Like, I don't think everything is for the audience's gaze. But if he were just to go a little bit deeper, like, okay, when it first happened, this is how it impacted me. And I can see how this would, play a role in how I was in relationships then. And this is the work that I've done since then, so that I'm not responding to relationships that way. And maybe he hasn't connected those dots, which I think he should have at this point because he's 39. But I just want something more. And one of my fears, which thankfully didn't happen, but was that Jasmine, hearing him talk about this, would lean into him more, like wanting to comfort him and wanting to be there and wanting to support him. And, I feared that that could happen. Thankfully it didn't, but as soon as the conversation happened, I was like, oh God, that's gonna, if she was starting to check out, she's gonna lean in more because she's like, oh, it's not his fault, he's trying and all of that.
Yeah. I also think too, because he came on so strong talking about sex and intimacy, it's kind of, I think she's keeping that in her mind too. Like, yeah, there could be all this trauma that's keeping him from being all in,
Yeah.
but why now is it an issue? Like, you've had previous relationships that you've been
Mhm.
willing to get into and take a chance on. When Dr. Pepper basically said, oh, well, did you choose this process just
To
because you
run.
basically knew you were a runner?
Mhm.
And he's like, yeah. Well, Dr. Pepper, you and Pastor Kyle should have known. She started the conversation off with, oh, well, you know, he's 39. Like they know all of this. So why did y'all pick him for this process? Why pick someone? And it's not that you have to be perfect, but it shouldn't be you being forced into a marriage to get you married. And that's not fair to her
at all.
And I hope when she heard that, that she didn't take it like, oh, no, girl.
At all. Yeah, people on Twitter were saying, I need these people to go to therapy instead of going to Married at First Sight to get into a marriage, because that is something that he should work through.
Yeah, because then it puts the onus on the other person to be a fixer. Even Dr. Pepper, she's like, oh, you have a lot of work cut out for you. No, she don't.
At all.
Why?
She out.
Why is it on her to try to fix him and convince him that it's okay to love?
Especially when he's not willing, you know?
And I'll say I can acknowledge that when you've been hurt or burned in certain ways, that you're very cautious or that you maybe don't want to let people get close to you. But I don't know how you sign up for being married at first sight and you haven't dealt with
That.
Like that's a huge wall, because now it puts it on her to try to convince you that it's okay to love but she can't make any promises to him anyways. Like people live, they die, they get divorced. That's life.
I put Jasmine being checked out is my favorite song. Like when I don't know if something happened in between the meeting with Dr. Pepper and when they were answering those questions, but this was my favorite version of Jasmine. So like he would ask the question, she was like, I don't really know. Like, because this is the energy that he's been giving this entire, season. So I'm so happy that it was her. And then in the confessional, he goes, oh, well, she says she wants to get deeper and this, that, and the other, but she's not giving me much. I'm like, no, she wants you to get deeper. She's done her part. She's been open. She's started conversation. She's asked the question. She came in like, open to this entire process. You haven't. So if she's closed off and now you need to be a little bit open, it's about time.
I don't know. I also think maybe this checked out energy started before that scene, because it's like all of a sudden now he wants to go deep and it's not about sex. Why? What changed? I don't know if it's like this game of cat and mouse, and because now he's seeing that she isn't as checked out, she also vocalized like, no, I'm not falling in love with you.
Yeah.
To where now he's like, oh, I have to give her a few more breadcrumbs to get her interested again.
Which seems to be what was maybe going on with like Shaquille and Kirsten too, where it's like one person has been doing all the work and now they're pulling all the way back. So Jasmine's mom came over, I guess. Is it Duchess? Duchess ate his shoe. And he was calm about it. He said, listen, this is one dog. I don't know about four. I felt like he was wasting Jasmine's mom's time because I think he was feeding her with stuff that maybe she wanted to hear. And then she, because she hasn't been watching the season like us, she was like, I think she just needs to open up a little bit more and all that. Like, no, Jasmine's mom, that's not what needs to happen.
I don't know. I think she was just saying it just to say it, because when she said that Jasmine shared with her that they agreed to not be intimate until decision day, I think Jasmine has been telling her mom more. And I don't know. I know that mama, look, I'm gonna play along to get along because we're on this show, but I know what's really going on here. That's what I think Jasmine told her more, but mama knew she had to show up and kind of put on. Like, oh, okay.
And then the last thing I have is that Airris said, I like connections. From the man who hasn't tried to make not one connection with Jasmine this entire season. I was like, now, sir, what you're not going to do is play in our face, because what type of connection do you like? So yeah, I thought that was funny. But other than that, I didn't have much else on them. Kudos to Jasmine. I'm glad you're finally in this space. Stay here a little bit longer. Stay here until decision day because this is
Yeah, and don't let his lack of attraction affect her
your self-esteem.
self-esteem and
Yes.
how she feels about herself going forward. She looks beautiful every time she's on screen. Her body looks amazing. This guy is crazy.
She's beautiful. She's poised. She's eloquent. She seems like a very nice person, really kind.
Very down to earth.
Yeah, she got it going on. So, yeah.
Yeah. Hmm.
All
Well,
right. Speeding right through.
yep.
Okay, so we are at Kirsten and Shaq. The very first scene when she was trying to ask when she was trying to ask him, "Oh, how do you feel about the meeting or whatever?" He said, "Finish chewing, please." When I tell you that's one of my pet peeves. Like, why are you talking to me with a mouthful of food? Like, don't do that. I can't understand what you're saying. It just irritates me. But yeah, he's like, "Finish chewing, please." I thought that was funny. And then every time they see the experts, they dress like they're going to Sunday school.
And bringing cookies, girl.
Right. It was so it's like very wholesome, but it's also kind of funny to me. Like they dress like it's church and they take it so seriously. But yeah, those are my first few comments about them.
Yeah, I'm still confused. That's about these two. Yeah.
Really?
One for Shaq because when they met with Dr. Pepper,
Uh-huh.
uh, he said that Kirsten had been asking him for more kisses and affection, but then he admits, like, oh, I had a rough week. I was checked out, mixed in with, oh, she was kind of pushing me away. So I really wasn't sure.
Hmm.
I don't know, Shaq. I think you were holding back because you felt away,
But honestly, even if he did, understandable.
which I don't have a problem with that.
Mhm.
But because he didn't come right out and say it, it's like, okay, I'll give Kirsten some slack in that I was a bit harsh in the previous episode, I believe, where it's like, oh, she wasn't letting him know. All right, we've heard, girl, you were letting him know that you needed the forehead kisses. So I'll give her that.
But also he kind of did let her know, like, okay, you're doing this, but it has to be on your time. So what about my
Mhm.
time? So he did kind of express like, okay, now you want it, but this whole time you've been dogging me out and not, letting me get close to you or anything like that. So I think in a way he did express it. But I I feel like this is the most personality we have seen besides dancing in Jamaica, the
Mhm.
ATVs and maybe the ice skate, the roller skating. This is the most personality that we've seen out of Kirsten in an episode.
Yeah, her confessional Kims were interesting.
I was like, okay, girl. they're a little like, I'm like, should I be watching this or?
Child. And the most vulnerable we've seen her be. I was wondering what her childhood was like, just because from the wedding, it was interesting. Like her mom, like barely showed up at the last minute, and then her dad didn't want to come because of COVID or something. And so I was interested to hear, like, okay, well, what else about you? Like, what was your upbringing? What was your family dynamic? Now
Mhm.
we finally know more about her.
Speaking of which, so she talked about how like her parents and what they went through, like that was shameful. And I think that's what I've been trying to get to. Like when I say I don't think she wants a divorce, I think she wants this to work.
Mm,
It felt to me like there was some type of like shame that she might feel if this didn't work. And
mm,
so to me, it always felt like, oh, she doesn't want this to not work. Like she wants it to happen, but she's not doing the actions to make it happen, which was the confusing part. But when she said that bit about her parents, I'm like, that kind of makes sense to me, like of why, in my opinion, she does not want to let this marriage go.
mm.
So I'm
I-
glad that what her desires um, are matching up with her actions now, at least from this episode.
mm. You think she's into Shaq after this episode?
I think she's been liking Shaq. I don't know if I would say, oh, she's like head over heels in love at this point, but I do think she started to like Shaq. And I think it might have been last week that I said it, but where now it's like, okay, I'm starting to like him, but he's not giving me any attention.
I
And so
think
now
that's why
I
she
hate that.
might be showing interest now is because he pulled back.
Probably, but I do
Yeah.
think she likes him.
Mm,
You don't
okay.
think so?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm still confused by her.
Okay.
It just feels all over the place where I'm getting mixed signals
Mm.
where she's like, oh, I'm into him. Even the way she was like, oh, I love a man who can just get stuff done. I don't know. It seemed kind of corny. I don't-
Okay. No, somebody was like, "Oh, the actress of the year." But
yeah, like it didn't feel genuine, but I don't know this woman. So I could be completely wrong. Maybe
and
that is how she talks.
and it is like a shift from what we've seen before. So we'll see what next week is giving because it's gone
Yeah.
from one extreme to another. I think it's hard to be like, will the real Kristen please stand up? I think is what people are probably feeling. But Dr. Pepper said something that I thought was really cool. She said, it's not do unto others as you have them do unto you. It's do unto my partner as they would do to themselves. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, okay, Dr. Pepper dropping the gems,
Mm.
because I think that's a really like key thing to remember in relationships, period. So friendships, family, romantic relationships, especially. So
Yeah. Yeah, she says she wants Shaq to take the lead. I don't know. I'm getting maybe traditional vibes from
I've
her.
always, yeah, and the baking the cookies and the dressing like it's Sunday school. Like I think I think that's the perfect word to describe her. I think she wants traditional.
Yeah.
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 And sees herself in that role. Like some of the things she said this season, even when her actions said the opposite, were giving
Mm-hmm.
like traditional. I think it was funny when Dr. Pepper asked how chemistry and intimacy were going with them. And Shaq was like, you want to talk? He said, I'm not saying anything because the last time I said, I think we're good, you contradicted that and you were like, I don't think there's much, or I don't think there's much improvement. So I was like, he learned his lesson. He said, I'm gonna let her talk first. But I think he ended up still speaking first, so it didn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But
he
I
said
just,
like, oh, there's improvement, I believe.
yeah, he was
Yeah.
like, it's
Yeah.
getting better.
I mean, from what we saw from the body paint scene, I think she is interested in
Mhm.
testing the waters, but I don't know that she's into him like that.
Okay.
Like
I,
I'm
I would say one more
getting,
thing about Dr. Pepper before
oh,
I go
yeah.
there. But
Okay.
I liked when Dr. Pepper said, okay, if she wants it now, then that's something you need to give to her. In the sense, like, don't be holding back and don't be holding a grudge just because she withheld from you for so long. Like, it's time to move forward. So I did like that,
Mhm.
but he was doing it already. Okay.
Yeah.
So, I said, "Is that Kirsten showing personality?" Because she was all into him creating that logo, and he had all the ideas. So I thought that was a cute moment. But now to the body paint.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm definitely getting the vibe that she wants to take it there.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's just to do a trial run and see, or is it just because she's really into him?
Okay. I still think they're gonna say yes on decision day.
I mean, I could see them saying yes on decision day. I just I don't know that she's really into him like that yet.
Okay.
I think
I
it's like, oh, cause what did she say in the confessional, Kim? Oh, I definitely think consummating the marriage will invoke the chemistry. So I think she's open to it to see if that helps them progress along. But I don't know if she's going into it like, oh, I'm already there. And then this is just the
hmm,
natural next step.
I think she's feeling our guy. I do.
Really?
I do at this point. Like I said, I don't think it's like head over heels, but I do think that she is liking him. I do think she
Mm.
still wants the marriage.
Mm-hmm.
But before it was like she wanted the marriage, but maybe she didn't really like want him. But now I think it's both. She wants the marriage and that she likes.
I mean, she was definitely saying all the right things, giving the compliments, being
Calling him
flirtatious.
honey.
Yeah,
Oh,
being
now I'm like, what has
flirtatious.
happened? That
Like,
little argument they had last week, whatever breakthrough they had afterwards, it worked wonders.
yeah. And I mean, he seems to be open to, I mean, he doesn't seem to be holding on to anything. So
Anymore. Yeah.
we shall
So
see.
yeah, she said it'll make her feel safe when he takes the lead when they were doing their Q&A. And he was like, okay, but don't be mad. Like, if you're asking me to take the lead, don't be mad when I actually do.
I feel like he already has, between him deciding they were just going to go to Mississippi and him turning down a job offer. I mean, he's already shown
Yeah.
I'm gonna do what I need to do.
This reminds me because last week in the comments, oh no, I forgot who left the comment, but
Oh, you want me to look it up?
I think it might take too long, but if
Okay.
you can, like while I'm talking, but she was saying that on another YouTube channel, the men were saying he missed the opportunity. He needed to like kind of step in and be dominant and take the lead. And while I kind of disagreed with that, like I think that would have
Mm-hmm.
completely turned her off. I think things happen the way that they need to happen. It's interesting that that's coming up in this episode where it's like, oh, she wanted someone who would be dominant, who would lead. Like I think she wanted that, but not until she was ready for it. And now she's ready for it. Like if he would have done it any sooner when she wasn't like interested in him, it would have turned
Mm-hmm.
her off completely. So now is the time, with her permission, he can be dominant in the lead or whatever.
So I think it was from Kim Patton.
Okay.
Yes, says, hi, ladies. Another great review. Just watched another YouTube channel, and the men felt Shaq fumbled his opportunities to take it to the next level. The spa date when she put her leg on his lap, the note from Nicole. They also suggested he should call her out on her shift in her behavior and stop trying to be right all the time. Let go of the past. I'm not in agreement with that logic, but but again, they are men. Thanks,
Yes,
Kim.
yes. Yes, thank you. So this whole episode reminded me of that comment, and I didn't get a chance to check out the other YouTube channel, but yeah. So
Yeah.
I don't think I would have said that he fumbled it, obviously because things have come around, but I think she wanted someone more dominant and who would lead, but not until she was ready for it.
And it could backfire just because
Still.
depending on the woman,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, he could have been reading her correctly and she's just like, no, I don't want you to be that way. So yeah.
Exactly. But yeah, the body paint was interesting. I was like,
Mhm.
okay, Kirsten, body yada yada.
And he did say in their session with Dr.
Uh-huh.
Pepper, like, oh, I know what to do now. I know what to do now. So I was curious, like, all right, Shaq, what you got up your sleeve? And he came through with the strawberries and the whipped cream. So
Listen, they have
he
turned a
clearly,
corner.
yeah, he was just maybe waiting on her to give the real green light.
Yes.
So
That's a major key. Her to give the green light, which she
yeah.
finally has. And he talked about it a little bit on the after party, which I love Keisha Knight Pulliam on the after party. I think she is hilarious, and I want her to always host that show. But yeah, so he said the thing about her wanting to be dominant. Jasmine was also on the after party, and I think Keisha asked her, okay, what will it take for you and Airris to go to the next level and to mend whatever is broken? And she said she would need to be reassured to get back to a place where she's willing to even give him a chance again because she's been so patient. I was like, standing ovation.
She
This is
knows.
what we need. um, anything else that you have on any of the couples?
Yeah, that was pretty much it. I
That was the
can't think
episode.
of anything else. I mean, at this point, you said that you feel like Shaq and Kirsten will say yes.
Yes.
Um, Nicole and Chris will say yes. And then are you solid on two other no's?
If Jasmine's not a no, I will be disappointed. And Airris better be a no because he's been a no since the wedding. So like attitude wise, he's been a no since he met her.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I want to see what Nicole and Chris, like what their issue will be, but I think it's going to be a yes on decision day, just from how she's spoken about him and defended him on the after party. So
Yeah, and I will say I think it was a few episodes ago where even people in the comments were like, "Yeah, we don't know if we quite trust Chris and just the energy that
the
he's giving off."
manipulation.
Yeah, a little bit of manipulation, but we didn't see any of that this episode. So maybe we were
Mhm.
all wrong, but we shall see.
I think it's something Nicole should watch out for. Like the next thing, she better not be so willing to let him have his way. Just
Yeah, he's gotten 2 big W's so far.
right. Not that well, we can keep score, but they
Yeah,
can't because it's their relationship. But essentially, yeah. Like next time she needs to get what she wants. So all
100%.
right.
All
We will be
right.
back next week for episode 13. In the meantime, check out our podcast. We have quite a few episodes on YouTube and even more on any podcast app that you have, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. So, all right, let us know in the comments what you thought about this episode, and we'll see you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.